Well, good morning. This is Father Fish. I want to convince you today of the importance of a deep sand bed in the bottom of your fish tank. And by deep, I mean for most tanks, a minimum of 3 inches. For larger tanks, 5 inches. For smaller tanks, like 10 gallons, 2 inches will do. And I'm going to do this, convince you of this, by showing you a group of tanks that have been set up for nearly 10 years. Each with a layer of soil, about 1/2 inch to 1 inch deep, 2 inches of sand or more, set up that way 10 years ago and have not been cleaned since then. The substrate has remained absolutely intact, absolutely unchanged, except for the constant introduction of new plants and new fish. So here we go. Let's get started. And let's start with this tank, which is a 200-gallon acrylic tank that has approximately 8 inches of substrate. This tank houses all kinds of fish and has over a variety of fish over an extended period of time. It's been set up just about 8 years. The only addition I have made to this has been to add a layer of sand to it, and you can see that top layer, about 2 years ago to give it some added depth. The tank has always remained completely healthy. I have never had disease in this tank. I have always been able to grow plants, even though because of the depth of the tank, it's very difficult to get down into the bottom and actually get plants in that substrate, which is why I have this pot over here with a plant in it. And these are plants that have been chopped up along the way by some guys who really preferred to eat plants. I had some large waru in here. They've moved on to greener pastures. So there's a 200-gallon deep substrate that's growing plants, remaining healthy, and keeping a large variety of fish. Let's turn around and look in back of us. I have 2 rows of tanks here. A bottom row of 24-inch, 29-gallon tanks. It's an unusual size. And the top row of 20-gallon longs. Let's look at the 20 longs. Again, as you can see, they're all set up with deep substrate. And that's like almost 5 inches deep. Plants growing in them, fish living in them. They're healthy, happy tanks. I never had disease I never have problems in these tanks. And they have a constant variety of fish. I showed you some of these cardinals the other day. The pretty plant. Really happy to have so many of them. I hope to be able to get a lot of my customers going on these cardinal plants. So there's 4 tanks right in a row, set up approximately 8 years ago with substrate, and you can see there's a difference between these two. One is about 5 inches, the other is about 3 inches. And there's no real difference between them. Maintaining healthy, happy fish, plants growing well. And I'm pulling plants out of this and selling them all the time. The trick is to put the plants down in the sand and let the roots go down into the soil. You don't have to root them all the way to the bottom. The tanks below don't get nearly as much light. In fact, I need to turn a light on here. I can find the switch. There it is. No, the switch is not working. Must be unplugged or something. Let's move on. Over here, this is a tank I started working on about 5 years ago. It's been slow. It's a Blackwater tank that has a very wide variety of plants and animals in it. Many of the plants are Aponogetans, which is certainly not native to South America, but are spectacular plants. As we go back in here, there's a school of green neons. Here's a crab. Can you see him? That is, I don't know what kind of crab. Vampire crab, I guess. Six-inch deep sand bed. Set down in here 5 years ago. The trunk was put in about 4 years ago. It goes all the way up to there. Big long trunk. I've got a number of plants living on it. A ginger, a orchid. And there's some water sprite in the back. Anubias. Bunches of different kinds of plants. The fish population includes these little pencils, as well as a variety of tetras and live bearers. There's another fiddler crab all the way in the back. I don't know if you can see him. It's all the way against the back glass there. I got a very healthy tank. I did have a problem in here. A couple of months ago, I introduced a population of neons that had neon disease, and I did not catch it until they were pretty badly decimated. I treated with something I can't remember, triple sulfite, I guess. Knocked it out, didn't lose any other fish, but lost all the neons. So I've replaced them now with this school of green neons back here. And they seem to be doing fine. Next to this is a 500-gallon glass and fiberglass tank that houses my large clown knives. It's become a knife tank. It does have a big peacock bass and an arowana. Sand bed varies between about 10 inches and 4 to 5 inches, maybe 6 inches. Has some plants growing in it. I had a couple of large cats in here and they were keeping the plants mowed down, so I'm hoping now that we'll get more growth. And these plants, which are well rooted, they're Sagittarius. That, of course, is an Amazon sword. Will begin jumping up again. The stability of these aquariums is what is most remarkable. They stay this way literally year after year after year. Waste is delivered down into the sand, it breaks down and is returned either as gases which dissipate into the air or as nutrition for the plants that are growing in them. Also as nutrition for lots of other little microscopic critters living in the tank. Let's go this way to another 200 that has angels. This is where my discus are going to be. As soon as I get them in, I'm looking to get some of the German discus in. Real excited about that. Should be another week before I'm able to get them. Right now it's a lot of angels and a lot of small cichlids like rams, some blue acaras, and various earth eaters, and a few oddballs like the black skirt. There's some mouth-rooting severums in the back there. Baby uarus. They're cute. Love baby uarus. The substrate in here is 8 to 10 inches. Again, this tank has been set up since the day I moved in, which is nearly 10 years ago. And it's had this substrate in it, which has basically never been disturbed. That is to say, I've never cleaned it. You can see this patch over here where a pump scoured it out. We replaced the sand and just kept going. It did not create any kind of problem. Plants do very, very well in here. They develop massive root systems. I have currently almost exclusively Amazon swords. The plecos and larger uaru, like him, have at the plants and tend to eat out some of the older leaves. So it's not always as pretty as I'd like it to be. These tanks are 15-gallon tanks with deep sand beds. We have angels, puffers, pea puffers, plants. This is an unusually deep sand bed. It kind of got out of hand. We had to pull the tank out a couple of years ago because it was leaking. And so when we replaced it, we put a little too much sand in. And it also is the wrong size tank. It sits down below the others about half an inch, which causes it occasionally to overflow. So we haven't gone back and fixed that problem yet. Glowfish, and again a 2 to 3 inch deep sand bed all along here. You can see how these dwarf sword, pygmy swords are growing in here. They just love this substrate. They've been growing in there for, probably 6 months. Maybe not quite that long. Here's some McMasteri, baby tears, flowering rotella plants in a deep substrate. Again, none of these tanks have the substrate disturbed. Not ever, unless something catastrophic happens. Plants are being sold out of them, so plants are in and out of them continuously. All right, let's walk around to the back end here and show you just one more bank of tanks. Oh, there is one over here. I want to show you. This is a tank that does not have plants in it. It's got about 3 inches of substrate. It's a 200-gallon that's loaded with cichlids. Cichlids from all over the world. It's got cichlids from 4 continents. See if you can pick them out. There's no aggression in this tank. Primarily because the aggression is so diffused that they can't find the guy they were angry at to get back at him. I also don't get any breeding in here. I did have one spawn a couple of months back. But even the Africans don't breed. It's just it's too busy, too much activity. But you can see everybody is happy and healthy. Now, the sand bed is augmented with a sump in the bottom that has a bag and a sump that contains itself about 4 inches of sand. And that flows up in and through and around. And somebody just walked in, so I'm gonna go pay attention to them for a while, and I'll get back here and sign off in a minute. That was my friend Richard showing me his new truck. So here's some 55s, deep sand bed. Again, these guys have been set up. Now, these have been disturbed. I had a worker here at one point who was convinced that Sam was an evil thing, and so she messed up some tanks. And finally, she found a better job. But you can see, even so, these guys are doing really well. Lots of plants. I put a light on here, and it ain't on, and it should be on. Let's see. Oh, it is. No, it isn't on. I gotta work on some lights today. This tank is full of babies. Loaded with babies. I don't know if we can see them. And so forth and so on. So there's the idea for a tank that is stable, healthy, very minor maintenance, relatively disease-free. You do want to quarantine fish you buy from shops that don't do a good job keeping fish healthy. These are 15s. All deep substrates. These are my my baby lure. Baby hump heads. Baby. Gee whiz. It's terrible getting old. Your brain doesn't work anymore. Here's some Jolies. A few in here that I hope will get big enough and spawn someday. Okay, so there's the plan. Deep substrate. What it gives you is a tank that is stable, that is healthy, that deals with the issue of waste by converting it so it's a balanced environment. It is what an aquarium ought to be because it replicates nature. Try it. Those of you who are panicked at the idea, try it. You will love it, and you will convert all of your tanks to deep substrate. I promise you. Take care for now. Talk to you again very soon.